So you're in the club 40 years as a biker, 30 practically as the president of the LA Ventura chapter of the Hells Angels, hung out with movie stars. You beat 2 federal cases, a murder conspiracy and arson.
Investigated by every agency known to man at one time or another. You see somebody from another area, who is that guy? What patch is he flying? You got your on you? Yeah, I'm packing, man. I never went to war as a Marine, but I did right here in Southern California. I went to prison in 1986, beat the case, which doesn't happen very often. I'm feeling bulletproof, man. I just beat the government. Nobody beats the government. They wouldn't even let me back in the prison because the inmates were going crazy because it came out on the news. Hells Angel found not guilty. Proved the government framed him.
George Christie is one of the founding fathers of the Hells Angels, the most infamous 1% outlaw biker club in history. He's written a tell-all book about his life as club president, from the bloody wars with the Mongols to the firebombings and mass graves of his enemies, to beating not 1 but 2 federal murder conspiracy cases. This man is a true underworld legend. Go get his new book, Crossing the Rubicon, and of course, check him out on YouTube. He's all over the internet. One of the last American outlaws, my friend George Christie, right here on The Connect with Johnny Mitchell.
Today, but back then, if you came into the bar and you wanted to sit in your seat, they had to relinquish the seat to you because it had your name on it.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it was kind of a...
That's pretty awesome.
Underground type thing.
Yeah.
Dick's last resort was named after Richard Chase, who was the director of Hells Angels Forever.
Wow.
And he also opened up a restaurant called the Chase Lounge. And then he had interest in Tommy Alsop's Heads Up Saloon. And Tommy Alsop is the guy that flipped the coin with Buddy Holly.
Oh, really?
So I got to go, I would come into town. I would hang out with Tommy Alsop, and he's telling all these old cowboy stories and hanging out with Waylon. And, well, I knew Waylon, but he was, hanging out with Waylon and talked about when he flipped the coin. And I have a coin at home. It says Tommy Alsop's Heads Up Saloon in it.
Wow.
It was supposed to represent the coin flip and destiny and all this.
The Hells Angels, in my mind, really represent the greatest generation to be alive in America. I feel like that era is past now, but it was, you're 80 years old. So you got the best of both worlds. You were too young for World War II in Korea, too old for Vietnam, perhaps.
No, I was a...
were you in Vietnam?
I didn't go in country. I was a United States Marine.
Oh, okay.
And I was 0311 rifleman. I did 2 things in 1966. I left for a Marine Corps boot camp and I bought a Harley-Davidson motorcycle.
Oh.
And the Harley-Davidson motorcycle, I'm starting to drift on the price. It was either $200 or $250 for the whole motorcycle. And, now you can't even get a bike serviced for a couple $100 bucks.
You can't even get a steak dinner for $250 bucks.
No, tell us about it.
Yeah.
We've been traveling a lot. And very unique time. The European veterans and the Pacific Theater veterans came back from World War II, probably suffering from PTSD, and they start forming these little bike clubs. These guys are probably buying motorcycles at that time, maybe for $50, $60, and easy transportation. These guys come home, they're all displaced. Their girlfriends are probably married, insurance salesmen down the street,
right.
And, or their wives have run off with somebody. And so they start forming the booze fighters, the pissed off bastards,
right.
The 13 rebels, Galloping Goose. And you've got these little groups and they go up, they start riding around together, hanging out, drinking and whatnot. And they go up to the little town of Hollister. And by coincidence, or maybe by design, maybe, the San Francisco Chronicle heard that these groups started frequenting these little American Motorcycle Association events. they send a crew there. They send a reporter and a camera crew to Hollister and capture this new phenomena, these outlaw bike clubs, these veterans that have come home and are now forming these clubs. It goes out over the AP, and they get statements from the guys, and the guys are saying cavalier stuff and posing with beer bottles and whatnot.
Right.
And they go to the American Motorcycle Association and say, how do you explain these people? Who are these people ruining it for everybody? And the American Motorcycle Association says, well, it's only 1% that ruin it for the wholesome riders.
Right.
And that's, they become the 1%,
Right.
The pissed off bastards split and they become the Hells Angels in 1948.
Right.
There's a little controversy about when it actually started. I mean, who kept records back then?
Right.
It was you jumped on your motorcycle, you showed up on Friday night at the meeting, and if nobody had the balls to run you off, you got voted in.
Right.
And
right. And so you were really the second generation of Hells Angels,
yes,
right?
Yes, that's how I see it.
You joined up what year?
Well, officially 1976, but I started coming around in 1966. Came back from boot camp. I started hanging out with a group of gentlemen called the Question Marks, who are endorsed by the Hells Angels. They are part of the 1%.
Right.
They have some bad luck. Their leader gets stabbed in a barroom fight, partially paralyzed. They're kind of down and out, looking for direction, looking for perhaps a new leader. I start hanging out with the Satan Slaves. And the Satan Slaves drag me up to Kern River, and I run into Old Man John, leader of the Los Angeles Hells Angels. And he sees something in me, and he invites me to the clubhouse. And next thing you know, I'm one of the guys.
Yeah.
It was quite a story.
Wow.
I mean, and you said something a few minutes ago that era has passed, and I'm sure the modern day club members don't want to hear me say it, but I think it was different back then. It really was. There was something about the Brotherhood. You had to know how to build a motorcycle from the ground up. You couldn't go into the Harley shop and buy a motorcycle that was custom. You couldn't even go in there and buy oil. They didn't want your business.
Right.
And
wow.
Somebody shows up at a party and they know that you haven't built that bike, you're going to get laughed off the block, and the styles of bikes, like San Diego had a style, San Fernando Valley, Purdue, Ventura, Frisco, Bay Area. Each area had a distinct style to the motorcycles. They're almost like a accent, like a geographical accent.
Yeah.
Somebody rides in, you go, that guy's from the Bay Area. And, one of the big things that I really missed was back in those days, I remember Keith Ball, his road name or club name, moniker, we called him Bandit. And we used to hang out. He was a Los Angeles Hells Angels ultimately. But before him and I became Hells Angels together, I remember we ran into a club one night in Ventura. We were up there goofing around in Ventura. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. And we ran 5 or 6 guys that were called the Molochs. And these guys all had their really long hair, and then they had half of their heads shaved. And whatever style motorcycle they had, like a knucklehead, or they had the motor tattooed on their heads, and then the engine numbers.
That rules. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I looked at Keith and I go, "Who are these cats, man?" He goes, "I don't know, the Molochs, man." And so we hung out. But this is an interesting thing. We hung out with them. Later, I kept running into them. I was running with the Question Marks, and we ran into them one night, and they weren't part of the 1%. And I was with some 1%ers. We wound up fighting, and we got in a fight. We fought on the beach on and off all night. And I'm fighting this guy. David Ortega is fighting him, and he's asked the guy to stop. He goes, "Stop. Let me wait. I want to watch George, man."
How do you fight all night in the sand?
Well, you fight, you stop, you have a beer, you start talking again, and then you get another argument.
Right.
And I used to look at David and just go, "Oh, man, come on, So we've been fighting these guys for
it sounds exhausting.
Yeah, it is exhausting. And
but these were the good old fashioned days before, somebody might have had a knife on them.
They told us we had to leave. We wouldn't leave. That's what the fight was about. They go, you guys, this isn't a 1%er party. This is our party, and you guys aren't welcome. And David Ortega says, well, I'm staying. I'm not leaving. I wasn't a 1%er officially, but I ran with those guys. And David asked me, he said, are you staying? What am I going to tell him? No. I could never face him again.
You know what I find so fascinating about 1% culture, the Hells Angels, for example, like drug traffickers, the goal is to get to the money.
Right.
And everything you do is in service of that. Everything, from collaborating on smuggling routes to, conspiracy with retailers and, sometimes murders. It's all in service of the dollar. But the Angels, it's like, it seems like the whole purpose of you guys, going on caravans, 100-man rides at a time, it's just about that. The end is the journey.
It's the journey.
Absolutely. Which is a beautiful metaphor for life.
Right.
Right?
And no, you're not missing it at all. And see, that's the point I was trying to make. It's like nowadays you see somebody from another area, who is that guy? What patch is he flying? You got your shit on you? Yeah, I'm packing, man. And back then it was, I said to Keith, I go, who are these guys? I don't know. Let's go find out who they are.
Right.
And we wind up hanging out with them, you know? And we got in a fight with the Molochs that night. And then 2 weeks later, we were all buddies sitting around the shop talking,
But, but it evolved. But it did evolve from this kind of like 1950s style, outsiders, we're just fighting each other to, by the late 70s, you personally are involved in, wars in LA where dudes are getting grenades thrown at them and, people are getting shot to death.
So changing a tire and getting blown in half because there's a bomb inside the tire. The valve stem is actually a trigger mechanism for the dynamite, and, they take the valve stem out. The guy thinks he's changing a tire. And next thing you know, he doesn't know. He doesn't exist anymore. And,
some Fallujah.
It changes the whole dynamics. What happens in Southern California, I have a stage play I wrote, and I perform. I went around the country and did it. And in the stage play, I talk about going in the Marines, and I say, I never went to war as a Marine, but I did right here in Southern California. And that's a fact. I mean, I've had people like veterans, well, you never in a war. Well, you know what, man, I was in a war, and it's a different kind of war than you're doing, because not only am I looking out for my own ass, I'm waiting for the indictment to come to go to prison. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Do you feel like, do you regret how it lost control, where you went from like this freedom outlaw, but that just meant like we party together and there's solidarity, and we're almost like weekend warriors, guys that don't want jobs, who just love to do something together as men. Do you regret that it attracted all of these different criminal elements that turned it into kind of a criminal organization?
Well, it's not a criminal organization. It's an organization with criminals in it, and people get people confuse the outlaw with the criminal. People that come around the Hells Angels back then, they were strictly outlaw type people. They weren't criminals. They weren't working criminals. I'm not so sure anymore. I think there's a lot of clubs that people say, this is an opportunity to make some moves. I'm going to have some heavy protection. Mm-hmm. And although the clubs reprimand you and they don't want you dragging them, into your personal drug business or whatever it may be, extortion, they brush against each other.
Yeah, that's what I was challenging you on last time we talked. If it's not a criminal organization, but 40% of its members are actively involved in crime.
Well, it makes a transition, and you have to ask. I ran into an ex-Vago, and really enjoyed talking to him. He's out. He knew who I was right away. Long respect from him. We talked. That's what we talked about. The clubs are making this transition. They're attracting a criminal element, where in the past, what was being attracted to these organizations, they were motorcycle riders, guys looking for Brotherhood. And guys looking for some action. When I say action, I mean, they wanted to go riding crazy, go maybe get in a fight, fist fight at the bar. But, they're not going home packing a motorcycle tire with dynamite and then taking it to a rival's shop and saying, change the tire for me. And I was part of that. And,
can you just refresh my memory? Who was that beef with?
That particular beef was with the Mongols.
Okay. Yeah. And that was like the famous Hells Angels Mongols war.
Yeah. It's still going today. I mean, they're still fighting, I hear, look, I went to prison in 1986. We were talking earlier. Beat the case, which doesn't happen very often. They go with 98% conviction rate. Yeah. First thing I say to Guy Castellone, who's there for killing 2 Mongols, Redbeard and Jingles, and back then he got 4 years for killing those guys. Barry Tarlow got him. You know who Barry Tarlow is? Top-notch attorney. He was my attorney as well. He gets him 4 years, So I see Guy, I go into the prison, Terminal Island, and I'm actually in the receiving area, and then they open the door and you walk into like a sally port. Yeah. There's nothing in there. They shut my door, and then on the other side of that door is the prison. And so that, they have the automatic doors. The door slides open, and the room is full of prisoners. And guys standing out in front of them, and they all start clapping as I walk through. And then they stop, and it was almost like it was orchestrated. Yeah. And remember, I carried the torch in the Olympics. Yeah. And then Guy says to me, "Well, it looks like that torch finally went out for you." And everybody starts laughing, and then he introduces me to all the people, and everybody's having a good time, slapping each other on the back. And then I take Guy aside and I go, "Who do I need to worry about in here?" And he goes, "Nobody." I go, "What do you mean, nobody? Is there Mongols in there?" He goes, "Yeah." "Banditos?" "Yeah." "Outlaws?" "Yeah." And I said, "Well, what's the deal?" And he goes, "We don't fight in prison, George." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, we have like an amnesty." And not those exact words he used, but don't worry about it.
So
man.
Bikers don't
fight in prison.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting.
They bury the hatchet. So when I came
really
home,
interesting.
When I beat the case, I come home in 1986. That was my quest. 87, I actually came home. I want to end the wars, the bike wars,
right?
And that's what I do, and I pursue it for 10 years. But this has become an organization that runs off primal instincts. And
there's a lot of testosterone.
Yeah, and you go to somebody and go, "Hey, what do you think about not fighting these guys?" Well, right away they're looking at you. Are you weak? Yeah. Are you a suspect? It's not a popular position. Taco Bowman, who later died in prison from cancer, died in 2019. He was doing life when him and I were negotiating for peace. We got an amnesty on shooting each other. As far as the clubs go, and then it unraveled, and he put a murder contract on me. It was very involved. People can look it up. It's United States of America versus Harry Taco Bowman. But he called me one time, and he goes, "I'm getting a lot of pressure from the young guys, man. They think I look weak." And he says, "What about you?" And I go, "Everybody thinks I'm weak, And I said, "It's to be a proponent of peace, you have to be strong." Yeah. And, it just ultimately unraveled.
Well, what do you think now? I've heard different things from different people. I've heard that the Hells Angels are really trying to brand themselves as like fully legit.
Well, if they're not, they should. Yeah. And
well, what do you hear?
I hear the same thing, but and then you pick up a text from one of these alerts you get, and you sign up for, and 50 pounds of hash confiscated in Spain. Right. So you read that stuff, and you have to take it with a grain of salt, and you have to come to terms with the fact that you're not in the club anymore. Yeah. It's not your problem.
Sure. Well,
and that's difficult.
And I imagine so. And the hit on that pagan motorcycle.
Yeah, they killed he was a
president.
pagan leader,
He was a pagan leader in the Bronx. And it took him a couple of years, but they got the shooters who took him out in broad daylight on camera. It was like watching Sons of Anarchy. It was crazy.
I actually watched it thinking I would see if I could recognize anybody's walk or anything. But I'm being a smart ass. But I did look at it several times.
Yeah.
It's captivating. You look at it and you're going, well, these guys look like they know what they're doing.
Well, according to Sos the Ghost, who we had on.
Sos, a friend of mine, a good guy.
Yeah, and from the Bronx, and so really speaks with authority on what's going on over there.
He does, yeah.
He said that those were Hells Angels that had contracted with the shooters because the pagans were introducing bloods, like blood gang members, into their ranks. So I don't know what you think about that. Are there gang members? Like, does that happen in California? Do Crips and Bloods now become one percenters?
Not to my knowledge, but I have friends that are black and that they're in street gangs. I've had some Crips at my house the night they killed Tukey. They gassed him,
Is that right?
And they had come up, and we were hoping that Schwarzenegger at the last moment was going to give us stay.
Yeah.
And we didn't go to the clubhouse. We came to my house, and it was a real sad evening. I had considered petitioning Schwarzenegger through Mickey Rourke, who I was very close with at the time, and I thought. I would hate to be responsible for damaging his chances if Schwarzenegger was entertaining the thought of, signing a clemency, order. But
I think nowadays he would have been given clemency. This was still back when they were trying. 2002.
2002 was it?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
I thought it was okay. Maybe
no. It was 2000. It was when Schwarzenegger was governor,
right? And
so that would have been in the early 2000s.
Okay. See, when you get 80, you lose track of time.
Totally. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Oh, God damn it! Give it a sec. Just nothing pisses me off
act
more.
Of God.
Except it was sometimes an Amazon truck will pull up right outside the door.
The barking.
Yeah,
bird.
or just like they'll be delivering packages and then just keep their radio just turn full blast. I don't even know if that's going to pick it. The mics probably won't even pick it up, but it's just
an Amazon
annoying.
Truck. We have these little cheesy mics, and it pushed.
I know. I thought it might affect our flow. But what are you going to do?
Having been shot at several times and bombed, nothing affects my flow.
When did you get bombed?
The Ventura Clubhouse was bombed twice. Once when we first arrived in town, it was probably some sort of welcoming committee. And then in 1984, after I carried the torch in the Olympics, I actually accused the ATF of throwing the grenade in the clubhouse because the spoon was laying in the entrance of the Ventura Clubhouse. One of the Ventura cops I knew, I asked him to get, could he please get the numbers off the spoon? He got the numbers, gave them to our private investigator, who was an ex-FBI agent. He traced the numbers of the spoon to an armory in Ohio where the ATF squad that later raided the clubhouse because of the bombing.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it's all in my new book.
That is wild.
I named some names of law enforcement.
Why do they want you dead?
Well, I don't think they wanted us
dead.
I actually think they thought the front room in the clubhouse was empty. We had a rule that if you opened the front door of the clubhouse or the side door of the clubhouse, you had to stand by it, like to smoke a cigarette or do whatever, drink a beer or whatever, to make sure nobody approached the clubhouse. David Ortega had opened the door, walked to the back of the room, and I think they drove by. They saw that there was nobody in the main clubhouse, and somebody threw a hand grenade in there.
And how does that make you, when we talk, there's so much going on with the Epstein files and the CIA, blowing shit up in Venezuela and, many, what people will call conspiracy theories. Does that surprise you, having been a target of violence by the federal government yourself?
Not at all. And see, what happens is now I have people go, wow, that really did happen to you, didn't it? Because now there's other people than outlaws or criminals, if that's what you want to designate them as, that are experiencing these things. Yeah. And these things are coming out. What do they call them now? Whistleblowers. Somebody says, hey, this took place, that took place. Right. I mean, and it's brazen. You've got it's. And
who do you go to? You're supposed to be a law-abiding outlaw. Who do you go to when you have the serial number of a grenade that gets traced back to the ATF?
Do you sue the government?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I took it to several attorneys.
But you should be able to prosecute, pursue in a law-abiding society. You should be able to force them to make an arrest.
Well, first you would have to do is what we did is we sued the government. Took my information to some lawyers, and what we were going to do is we were going to sue them for losing control of an explosive device and endangering American citizen David Ortega. And what we were hoping for is, David would receive money from the government for the rest of his life, or we were going to make it real easy for him, but we wanted the conviction, so to speak. Yeah.
Did you ever get any money out of them?
No, because David, unbeknownst to me at the time, was probably suffering from PTSD. He just didn't want nothing to do with it. Didn't show up for court dates. He was picking shrapnel out of his body for years. And he had a bottle around his neck, and he would pop the top off. And every time a piece of shrapnel surfaced, he'd pull it out. And he had a bottle full of shrapnel, and he wore it as a bracelet, necklace thing.
Wow! So, and you were also the target of, they call it lawfare or cop fare. The government went at you, spending so many resources to over prosecute you, and then they really didn't get anything.
By every agency known to man at one time or another. And the interesting thing for me is, thank God they didn't work together. Because what would happen is they wouldn't share information. They were holding stuff back from each other. They had a task force formed in 2001. They were coming after me. That's when my boy and some of the guys were getting all those Vicodin. I don't know if you remember that case. It was like 1 million Vicodin fled to Ventura.
And that was a Hells Angel that was bringing it in?
No, it was a friend of my son's. Okay. I went to high school with. He became a pharmacist in the Air Force. And him and my son came up with this idea that if they brought all these Vicodin into town, they could make a lot of money, which they did.
Sure.
Yeah. A million Vicodin. Figured out,
a million Vicodin that they stole from the
United States Air Force.
Holy shit! So you sell a Vicodin for, you can make over $1 million.
Yeah.
So they tried to tie you in.
They tried to tie me into that, and I'll tell you how they got busted. Is they didn't take the labels off the bottles.
Come on, guys. Yeah,
and I told my boy, I said, if you would have listened to Pops, but there's.
So did he do time for that?
Yeah, he did. He did a year. But the case, all agencies were fighting, and the grand jury was structured in the wrong manner, and there was all these extenuating circumstances of the case collapsed under its own weight, and they said, We accept a year. They wanted me. They didn't care about him. My ex-wife, who they threatened to deport. She was a Canadian citizen. It was all about George Christie. I was the target. But
why did they want you so badly? I mean, you've been asked it a million times, but in this
cavalier comments. they looked really bad during the Olympics. You know, the only reason we got involved in the Olympics is because that ATF group, they were sent to Lake Casitas. They were going to protect all the athletes, you know, participating in the water sports. The Ventura clubhouse is like 10, 15 minutes from the lake. And what they did is they said we were going to supply weapons to terrorists. They went to community, city fathers and businessmen and said, you know, if you hear of anything, let us keep your ear open. Well, they immediately called me, you know, said, hey, George, these feds are down here saying you're going to give weapons to terrorists. So I come up with this idea along with another member, Tiny, and we present it to the club, and it got a lot of resistance.
Right.
You know, I said, look, we got to get in front of this. We got to control the narrative. What we need to do is not only support the Olympics, we're going to participate in them. And we'll participate by carrying the Olympic torch. And that's what we did. And it just burned some of the guys. It was just too much for them.
So do you think, it reminds me a lot of the reason that a lot of like cults, for lack of a better term, we're in Texas. So, you know, you look 45 minutes up the road, an hour up the road is Waco.
Waco, right.
And, you know, David Koresh and the Branch Davidians, while weirdos, and, you know, he was sleeping with everybody's wife, and he was, you know, professing this religious apocalypse. They're many times they're not doing anything illegal.
Right.
And I simply think it comes down to, we just don't like people that don't go along.
See, no,
so I feel like the one percenters kind of get targeted for that reason. It's we just don't like you, and
we don't fit in.
Yes, we don't fit. You don't fit in, and yeah, you do. You live on the margins, and so and we know these guys have guns, so that's where we'll start.
Are you familiar with the shootout in Waco with the bike clubs?
No.
And I can't remember what year it was. I think 2015. The Banditos and I can't remember the other club's name, go to this coalition meeting where, you know, all the clubs come and they talk and whatnot. There's a shootout there. 7 or 8 people are killed. I get invited to go on CNN, you know, comment on it. And on CNN, I predicted that when the ballistics came back, the shooters were not going to be banditos. The shooters were not going to be the other club guys. The shooters are going to be law enforcement. And I think 6 of the people were from police officers' sniper rifles.
Wow.
They shot them. It's a big case, and they arrested 150 people.
So they were setting up, raiding them. They were going to raid the meeting, and they had snipers already.
Yeah, they had everybody in place. And I don't know all the circumstances. It's been several years. I remember I spoke to Jeff Pike about it. He was the international leader of the Banditos at the time. I got a phone. It's, you know, you get put in situation. I got a phone call from the feds. They had a message for Jeff Pike, and I passed the message to Jeff Pike. And like when the feds called me, I go, you guys are kind of putting me in a compromising position here. I'm going to call leader of the Banditos, and I've got a message from the feds for you. And I called Jeff. Jeff and I knew each other well. He was very gracious. I said, do you want to hear the message? And he goes, sure. And the message was they didn't want a problem. They didn't want to start a back and forth situation. And Jeff Pike said, of course we don't.
Yeah.
And
so the only problem was created by the government.
Well, that's my position. Yeah. It was that position then, and you know, it's my position now. And you know, what's tough is you got these people. Are they intentionally going there with the thought of killing outlaw club members? I don't think so. You know, I don't think. It's like this last guy that got killed by ICE in a couple of weeks.
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Last week.
Look, the police officers are just people. They're not machines. Some of them are trained very well. Some of them aren't geared for it, you know. And I think that they find a gun on that gentleman, which is perfectly legal. I think it was a legal weapon and whatnot. But people react, and that's what happened in Waco. I think the people fight started between the clubs and pushing and shoving. Next thing you know, you've got people on the ground shot.
Yeah,
it just snowballs.
But it definitely speaks to how the government is just made up of people. And in your case, in a small town like Ventura, you have a lot of small town pettiness, and that includes the feds. And they waste a lot of taxpayer money chasing you, unless you're actually like a big criminal and you're just not telling me. I've asked you every way, which way from Sunday, if you've got any.
I'm going to put you up there with some of those U.S. prosecutors that questioned me when I took the stand in my own defense.
Yeah.
But look, the things I did, I learned real fast, and I'm not going to get into it. This isn't a confessional for me, despite what you'd like, But look, you can make just as much money being an entrepreneur. And I mean, I guess we could talk about your past as well.
Sure.
But you're doing better now, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels better at night.
It feels a lot better. It feels a lot better.
Yeah. You don't, what are those footsteps?
Right.
I'll tell you, my last experience with an FBI raid, 2011. My dog, and if you're a dog guy, your dogs have different types of barks, and the dog barks, and I go, that's a serious bark. Throw on my house coat. I'm getting ready to go down the stairs, and then I hear the neighbor, "Wow, are you guys really FBI?" They got all their jackets on, their SWAT gear, and I knew they were there.
Wow.
And the phone rings, and I go, "I'm going to open the front gate." I go, "Don't kick the gate in. Don't kick my doors in. I'm not armed. I don't have any weapons in here." And they were pretty cool. They were.
Right.
What
were they there? What was the warrant for?
They arrest me. They said I'd ordered the bombings of 2 tattoo shops in Ventura. You recall that case?
Yeah.
So, here's an interesting thing. We were talking about, does crime pay? Perhaps for a envelope of time.
Yeah.
And then it catches up to you somehow. But here you got a crime that took place, and I never had anything to do with those tattoo bombings. If you want to talk about the tattoo business after I explain myself, I'll be more than happy to talk about it, because we did have a hold on the tattoo business in Ventura. I'd be foolish to sit here and try to say we didn't.
Yeah, you had the most thriving tattoo shop for years in Ventura.
30 years.
Yeah.
But a crime happens in 2007. Now, the guys came to me and they said, "We're going to get rid of these guys." And I said, "You're not even in the tattoo business." I go, "Why do you even care?" I go, "The tattoo business is completely different now." I said, it's mainstream, man. Yeah. Everybody's getting tattoos. I go, "You're not going to be able to control the tattoo business." They decide to ignore my pleas to them. They firebombed the place. It's 2007. 2011, they finally indict me just before statute runs out or whatever. I go to prison in 2013. I fight my daughter, and I fight this case along with another lawyer.
Are they trying to get you to tell who did it?
Well, no, they want me to flip.
Of course.
Yeah, they're telling me there's a murder contract on me, and they have the tape recorder. They got me handcuffed, and they're questioning me, and they, there's a murder contract on you. It's right on this tape right here. I said, "Well, push play." "Oh no, you gotta come to work for us if you want to hear it." And I go, I'll take my chances on the street. And so now my daughter chips away, knocks off the mandatory minimums of life. I wind up getting sentenced to 1 year. I go to jail. I come back in end of 2014. I'm on, it's not parole anymore. It's now called federal probation. I go on probation, and it's 2018 when I get off probation.
Right.
And that's 11-year span, man. And you know what it's like to be, do you know what it's like to be investigated? Did you know they were investigating you?
Not to that extent, not even close.
Mean, you know these guys are watching you, they're following you, they're taking pictures. I'm going into my favorite restaurant, and the owner of the restaurant's handed me a note. The whole back of the restaurant's wired. They're listening to everything you're saying. Wow. I mean, that's some heavy surveillance.
Think about that. Over a firebombing that didn't hurt anyone.
Well, but they don't think it's just a firebombing. They think that I'm, the biggest distributor of cocaine on the West Coast, and they think I've also have my hands in unions. I get subpoenaed to the Teamsters union. Why do you have a lawyer that the Teamsters use? They come up with this stuff. I mean, guys lay awake at night thinking of these things.
Do you think it's because you never did any real time that somebody at the ATF or the FBI?
Think they think I'm the guy that got away.
Right. This guy's been...
He's been doing this for 40 years, and we don't have him.
Now's our shot.
Yeah. Well, I think this was the final chance. I don't know why they would, look at me now.
Did you feel like persecuted? I know you're not that kind of guy. You're an easygoing guy, but were you like, if you were actually innocent,
and
let me
tell you what I tell the cops. People may call bullshit, but my wife's sitting right there, and she was with me. Got stopped by one of the judges, and he asked me, he said, "Hey, George, do you have any hard feelings? Everything cool?" And I go, "Yeah, everything's fine." When I see these judges, these prosecutors, whether state or federal, and these law enforcement officers, they were supposed to come after me. That's the game. That was their job. And I don't take it personal. Yeah. And when I do start taking it personal, I slap myself and go, "Knock it off, George. You know what? You were rubbing your thumbing your nose at all these guys for years." Right. And I would say provocative things. And
how so? Like
just,
in person?
Well, here, the clubhouse gets bombed. So I call like I'm going to be out at the front of the clubhouse at 7 a.m. this morning making a statement about the bombing. Of course, the media is going to show up. "Mr. Christie, who do you think did this?" I said, "I have a long list, and the ATF is right on top."
Wow.
So they don't like that shit. I actually had a Ventura police officer, a sergeant, later became a lieutenant. I'm not going to drop his name because he got accused of being on my payroll, which never happened with any of those Ventura cops.
Did you guys have any cops, sheriffs at any time?
Not really. Let me tell you. You want to know why George Christie got along with so many cops? Because they never asked me to compromise myself. And you know what? The reason they liked me is because I never asked them to compromise themselves. I figured, you know what? If you guys can't do it on your own, don't ask me to help you.
Right.
And it's the same thing with me. I used to put out false information all the time. And I thought somebody was a rat. I put something out false. And when it circled back to me, that guy's no good.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Counterintelligence. I was a Marine, man. I worked for the Department of Defense. I took all that stuff seriously and trained. Me and Sonny Barger got in a big argument one time. Sonny Barger, I said, Sonny, I like to apply my military background and my Department of Defense stuff to the outlaw bike culture. And, Sonny goes, fuck that. He goes, I burn every bridge I cross. And I said, as a United States Marine, I said, I like to leave one bridge for supplies and one bridge for a tactical retreat if necessary. And, so I applied all that stuff, and
So like if you thought somebody was a rat, you would
give them false information
and see if he bit on that.
Yeah. And see if it came back and then see if perhaps somebody came under investigation at a
coincidental time.
Yeah. And then you have to, do you call him a rat? No, but you go, I'm not telling that guy anything.
Right. So you would know that a guy was a rat and still let him be around the club?
Well, how are you going to prove he's a rat?
I guess by that circumstantial
evidence. Oh, George, you're overthinking everything, man. I've been accused of that perhaps my whole life.
Right.
But maybe that's why I'm still here.
Well, I think the Hells Angels just put up with that. You guys never, I mean, that's proof right there about probably why there are so many informants in the Hells Angels, because you guys know that they're there and you don't really do anything.
We think they're there, but, well, they don't always do it.
I guess
several guys have disappeared. You want to talk about the 70s,
okay,
and the 80s, but I don't want to go there. I'm sure you'd like to go there.
What year did you go straight?
Straight?
No,
well, I've never been straight.
Well, like obviously,
are you talking about my sex life or?
I don't know. Those Hells Angels parties back then, those must have been liberating. Like what year did you? And I'm not talking about.
I would say,
I don't want any details, but what year did you go from?
Mid-80s, when I went to prison in the mid-80s, I realized the feds do whatever they want to do to get you, man.
For sure.
They don't give a shit.
Right.
They go outside the guidelines. They create crimes, whatever it may be,
A lot of times literally create crimes.
They do.
Yeah.
And when I came home in the midst of a big FBI investigation. And I have like 3 chapters in my book. It's like informant number 1, and then the next chapter is informant number 2, and then informant number 3. And what I'm trying to let the audience, the reader, in on is that this is how bad these guys wanted me. They had this guy, then they had this guy, then they had this guy, and I come home. It's now 1987. I'm feeling bulletproof, man. I just beat the government. Nobody beats the government. Very, very seldom. You know what it's like. What's it like when somebody takes it to the box and comes back with a not guilty? What's the prison like, or the facility like where you're at? Now, I was in terminal life in prison because they didn't have the.
You weren't sitting in an MDC.
No, I was
waiting.
In the prison. Yeah. And
it's
prison
electric.
They wouldn't even let me back in the prison because the inmates were going crazy.
Yeah.
Because it came out on the news. Hells Angel found not guilty. Proved the government framed him. Right.
Yeah.
And
now it must have felt like when Jackie Robinson got integrated.
Yeah.
How black folks were feeling. That's
jump on our bikes, man. They brought my bike down in a truck. We jump on our bikes.
Yeah.
We storm back. And look, here's the thing. You got these devastating tapes, and they were devastating.
How so?
We're going to kill this guy, George. Yeah, fuck him. I don't care. They're devastating. How do you explain that to a jury?
We were around.
Yeah. So this is what we do. I've got my tapes. You're going to love this. My tapes being played at the Grateful Dead Front Street studio. And everybody's listening to the tapes. My friend Garcia probably is there listening to them. But they're playing the tapes there. And everybody's going, he's dead in the water. He can't win this. Alan Kaplan, famous criminal attorney. You ever heard of the Pizza Connection? Mm-hmm. That case? You ever heard of the Starved Dust skimming case?
Yeah. That's him.
That's how I got tied into and subpoenaed to the Teamsters grand jury because he was my lawyer.
See. Okay, so hang on. So who was trying to set you up was...
The FBI.
Right. Who in the Hells Angels actually got you goaded you into agreeing to murder? And was it even a real target?
It was not a real
inventing?
Target. Okay. It was a former wannabe Hells Angel from Ventura that didn't make the cut. And it was a high-ranking member of the Mexican Mafia that I was friends with these guys. And he came to me, and I went to Sonny. I had never met this guy. Poor Slim was his name, Mike Mulhern. I'd never met him, but I was friends with Mike Eisen Acha. I don't know if you ever heard of that name, The Hatchet. And he was one of the top guys in the Mexican Mafia. Him and I had a relationship. Mike goes to prison for 18 years. The newspapers do this big story, new revelation. George Christie has connections to the Mexican Mafia. Mike Eisen, a top Mexican Mafia member, and George Christie are personal friends. I mean, this was in 2 newspapers, a big spread. So how does that affect me? In law enforcement, it's a real detrimental rumor going around. But on the street, my street creds, man, like
right.
sky high. George Christie, man, he's tipped up with these guys.
I mean, they're pipe hitters. They're the biggest in Cal. They're the baddest in California.
Yeah, you know all about it.
Yeah.
Well, Mike Ison and I were like good friends.
Wow.
And he was housed next to Joe Morgan, the top guy up in Pelican Bay. They used to call me. Joe and him would pass the phone back and forth.
Joe Morgan was AB?
No, he was Mexican Mafia.
Oh, he was
Mexican
a white
Mafia.
dude,
But he was head of the Mexican Mafia.
Right, yeah.
Big leg Joe Morgan had his leg blown off.
From American Me.
Yeah, if you watch American Me.
Yes. Okay. So who was it? A ranking member of the?
Yeah, he was a. I'm not going to say. He was a top tier guy because he was in on the ground floor. So he says to me, he comes to me and says, I got to take this guy out, man. He owes me 10 grand. Unless you want to pay the 10 grand, George. If you pay the 10 grand, I'll call it square. Well, I'm not paying 10 grand for some guy I don't even like. So he tells me, Mike says, I know you don't know me. Go talk to Sonny about me. And I go up and I talk to Sonny, and Sonny tells me, man, this guy's 100%. You can trust him. I asked a couple of other people about him. Everybody said this guy's straight up, man, straight up. He got up on the stand in the trial, admitted to complicity in 19 murders. I don't know how many he did. I don't remember how many he did himself. So the guy's a tough player, but I got off track. So you've got everybody, you got all these lawyers listening to this tape.
But hang on, explain the day that he came to see you. And
he comes to me.
And when he was recording.
The microphone, he had 19 meetings with him. The microphone only worked twice. Oh. 2 conversations.
Yeah, the 80s were fun.
Yeah, so, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That equipment failed, 17 times.
Do you think he turned it off when he thought, I can maybe get 10 grand out of you? So he turned the wire off.
I'll tell you a funny story.
Yeah.
So as this thing progresses, one of the guys in the he's actually associate at the time. He wants to buy some machine guns. So he sells him some machine guns, and he puts $500 of the money that's paid, and he steals it from the feds. He's up on the stand. Is it true that you taught your 3-year-old daughter to take the heroin balloon and put it in her mouth and close her mouth when the police came? I mean, this is stuff, people are going to call bullshit. You know what? I'm calling bullshit on you. You go down there and get that records. It's a court record. It's all in the minutes of the court record. Stuff was said on the stand by this guy. But anyways, I'm getting off track. I'm getting excited now.
No, I want to know. So why did can you say this guy's name?
Mike Mulhern.
Mike Mulhern. Why was he trying to get you set up? Was he jammed up himself? Or was he just working off time?
He's working off time. He got caught with a gun. He turned into a double agent type guy.
Yeah.
And there's a great story, a follow-up story once I get to the prison. And
so they saw you in the headlines when you got out of prison. They saw,
let's get this guy.
Yeah,
let's shut him up.
Okay.
He's a smart ass. He thinks he's and now there's a woman sitting in this room, my wife, Beverly Christie, who was a character witness. And what did they do to my future wife? They froze her bank account. They put her shop under surveillance and impacted her business, all because she was going to testify about my character. She was a character witness, nothing more. Right. And that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to prove that I was washing money through Beverly's store.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a web, man.
So on the tape, you think that was the most damning thing?
I'd do it myself if he was here.
That's what you said.
Yeah. They go, look, man, we're going to kill him. He's going to be dead. And I go, I'd do it myself if he was here. And then Mike goes, thanks. And then at the end of the tape, I go, yeah, thanks for nothing. I was kind of like exasperated with the guy.
Right.
He'd come back 19 times to talk to me about killing this guy. I was like, just kill him, man. If you're
So, but you're like so shrewd, and you're a veteran by now. Like, didn't you find that suspicious? That he can't, why come back to talk to you about a murder of a guy that's not even part of the club? Like, did that raise suspicion?
The feds played this to the hilt. I don't know who thought up the scenario, but it was brilliant. This guy got kicked out of the club, kicked away from the club for dropping the name of the club. He would pretend in drug deals he was a Hells Angel. So when the guy comes and said, this guy says he's a Hells Angel, I mean, it fit right in. I was going, okay, that's believable.
Right.
He owes us 10 grand. Well, he was a player, we're going to kill him. Well, he's not a likable guy.
Right.
I would have done it myself if he was, no, I'm being a smart ass now. But I did say that on the tape.
Yeah.
And when I took the stand, well, I want to go back. So I've got all these people listening to the tape. You got, I heard that, I don't know if it's true, Francis Coppola listened to the tapes because he was friends with the Dead, and Mickey Hart from the Grateful Dead was doing music for him, and he just happened to be around there. Everybody says I'm a done deal. I don't know how we're going to fight this. Barry Tarlow, he's rated one of the top 10 lawyers in the country at the time, cost me $580,000, $500,000, almost $600,000.
In 1987.
1986
Wow.
when we gave the retainer. So he listens to the tapes. Yeah, I can beat that case.
You're like, well, you take 250. Give me some of that back.
He goes, yeah, I can beat that case. And I said, well, what do you hear? And he goes, well, I hear a guy manipulating you.
Yeah.
And I hear him controlling the conversation. I hear you being exasperated and wanting to get the guy away.
Right.
And so you're just conceding to him, if you will.
So the feds were trying to say that, like, you're giving the order.
I gave the order. Yeah. That I gave the order. It was my order. I wanted this guy killed. That they didn't make this up. He proved that it was them that made the thing up. So we come up with this brilliant idea. It's Friday afternoon. It's opening statements. And they leave the jury thinking that this gentleman, Tom Chaney, has been murdered at my behest. And so we have we're telling, it's opening arguments. Yeah. U.S. attorneys saying that, they're playing the tapes, and the jury thinks this guy's dead.
Oh, they're lying?
No.
About a guy?
They're not telling everything.
I see.
You know how they do it in court? Yeah.
I mean, but that is like another level of manipulation. They're pretending the dead.
Yeah,
There's been a murder. Jury
to go home Friday night, and they want them to brew on it all weekend. So Tarlow goes, Your Honor, this is completely unfair. He goes, they are going to leave this courthouse thinking Tom Chaney was murdered at the order of my client, George Christie. He goes, that is not fair. And the judge hated me. And just, it's almost like you can't make this shit up.
Well, it's like
judge,
Soviet Union, like kangaroo court.
Yeah,
they're charging you with murder when there has been no murder.
So we go in Monday morning. We have a meeting Saturday, and I'm going to take credit for this. I said, hey, Barry, I think the jury thinks that guy's dead. I go, why don't you just go in there and blow the bubble up, man? Just pop the bubble. Right. He's not dead. He's a government informant himself, and they're working to get my poor client, Mr. Christie. And that's what he does. And it's like, it just crashed. Yeah. The energy in the courtroom went down. So
well, that makes them look so. It makes the government look so. Exactly. Yeah.
So we get in there, and they offer me. After a couple of days, they said, "Look, we'll drop the murder life sentence if Mr. Christie will plead to the conspiracy, and we'll suggest 9 years to the judge." And Barry Tarlow, it's on the record. He said, Your Honor, today and today only, Mr. Christie is willing to plead guilty to impersonating Smokey the Bear. He goes, that is a federal crime, isn't it, Your Honor? And the judge was pissed. The judge, Mike Eisen and Joe Morgan were on my witness list, and the judge refused to bring him into the courtroom because Judge Trevisan, who was the judge in this case, was the one that sentenced Joe Morgan to prison when he got his leg blown off in that robbery. So there was just like, there's all this,
Right.
Backstories going on in this thing. But I beat the case.
How long did the trial last?
9 weeks. I was on the witness stand 6 days.
Yeah. And so did they bring in the snitch?
Oh, yeah.
And did they bring in the victim?
No, he never showed up.
So basically you're being accused of ordering a murder to an informant against another informant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so
double informants.
Yeah.
And so Barry gets this guy, and this is 1986 standards. Barry gets him to admit he's gotten maybe like over $300,000 from the feds, and he's living in, he's also living in the witness protection program. He gets a $50,000 bonus if I get found guilty. And so Barry says to him, so you've got a bonus if Mr. Christie gets convicted. And he goes, yeah. And he says, how much? $50,000. So Charlo walks over to the jury, and he's walking up and down the jury stand. He goes, you heard it. $750 a day heroin habit. The feds know it. He goes, they may even be supplying him with it, and then he said, so he goes, Mr. Christie's informant has been paid, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And he goes, who do you think pays for that? And the jurors are kind of looking at each other. And Barry goes, you, your taxes, you're all paying for that. Do you think that's right? And so when they find me not guilty, the jury foreman said, well, why did you find Mr. Christie not guilty? Because he had no interest in killing this guy until the Fed showed up with this story, and we want to send a message to Washington. And that you can look that up in the LA Times. I think you can find that story. Look,
is it a crime if you come to me and say, hey, I really want to kill this guy that you kind of know, and I say, yeah, I mean, I don't care. Like, is that a crime? Do I have the responsibility?
This is what I told the
Am
jury.
I like a psychiatrist? I have to tell somebody.
This is what I told the jury. I looked at the jury and I said, look.
Oh my God, you testified.
Yeah, I took the stand in my own behalf.
Right.
It's funny, Barry tricks me because I didn't want to take the stand.
Right.
Because I figured they're going to kill me up there, man. And I go, so what do you think, Barry? And we're getting ready to rest. And he goes, we're in a really good position. He goes, we have one witness left, and that witness can push us through the winner's circle, And I go, really? I go, who is it? He goes, it's you. And I go, oh, wait, man, I don't want to. He goes, I can't make you take the stand. He goes, but you're smarter than that U.S. attorney. And he goes, just get up there. And he told me, break his rhythm. And so when he was questioning me, I started, I just was like playing with him. And he finally got so exasperated, he told the judge, he goes, Mr. Christie is asking and answering his own questions. He goes, get him under control. And Judge Trevisan said, Mr. Taro, get your client under control. And he goes, I can't control him. And, I just was like, I was having a ball up there after I got used to it. But, I was very nervous at first. But I looked at the jury and I said, when's the last time you got mad at your kid? And you said, man, I would kill him if he was here.
Right.
And they were kind of nodding their heads. And then I looked at him and I said, look, perhaps I committed a moral sin, a moral crime by not turning this guy in. And then I said, but the guy's a drug dealer. He's a pimp. I go, I didn't even like him. And, it worked,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So there's really no law.
No.
Or at least there was no charge that they put on you that was like you failed to tell somebody that a fake murder was going to happen.
But I've got to tell you something. 1987, let's move up now to 2013. And the jury pool were giving the voir dire.
Okay, so 1 second. So 87 to 2013, you're never arrested again. You have no cases.
I got arrested in 2000. 2002, but the case kind of collapsed under its own weight. You know,
and you were a baller. You had 600 G's in 1986 to give to a lawyer. This is your big time narco days, right?
Well,
just kidding.
You're just going to drag it out of me, aren't you? Look, I have never said this before, but I want to confess. No, I
thought we had a scoop, dude. I thought we had something you hadn't told Vlad. Give me something you haven't told.
Well, are you going to let me interview you afterwards?
Yeah, I would love it. I would love it. I would love it. But you're a thriving legal entrepreneur. Is that your tattoo shop money?
I have a tattoo shop.
And
I have a concert promotion business. I have a T-shirt business. I have a martial arts school. I have a martial arts store. I have a bail bonds company, and I'm administrator for my daughter's law office. Wow. And she pays me and 1099s me at the end of the year because I'm not a lawyer, but I work as an administrator in her office. And they tried to arrest me for impersonating a lawyer because I called a parole agent and I said, "This is Mr. Christie from Christie and Associates, attorney." And I said, "We've got a client there. I want to ask a couple of questions about his terms and conditions." Well, the guy thinks I'm a lawyer. Calls me back 10 minutes later and goes, "Are you a lawyer?" And I go, "No, I'm not a lawyer. I'm the administrator." And he goes, "Well, you called here earlier and said you were a lawyer." I go, "No, I did not." I go, "Don't misrepresent what I said." They were trying to beef me for, you know.
Yeah, it's crazy. So you were this really thriving entrepreneur in Ventura. And
I had a great concert promotion business, and the feds ruined it. You know how they ruined it? They went to all my clients and said, "Can you suffer an IRS tax audit?"
Right.
And the only person that told them to go fuck themselves was Jerry Garcia.
Yeah. God bless him.
Yeah. He said, "Bring it on."
Yeah. Right. Isn't that amazing? So they really were convinced you were like laundering money through these businesses. You were complicit.
Name it, I had done it. And you ever read the book Angels of Death?
No, I've heard of it though.
Angels of Death is a book written by a crime reporter in Canada, Julian Scheer. And in the book, he identifies me as the Al Capone of Ventura. And that's what the police call me. And I mean, that's how they perceived me.
Yeah.
And
you would regularly not regularly, but it was common for you to have people approach you to try to get you to talk about a murder.
Anything, ask permission for murders. Right. Could you get rid of my partner? You know, I used to say stuff, and I was joking, but there was some seriousness to it. I said, "So you're going to murder your business partner?" And they go, "Well, I like to get rid of him." And I said, "Why don't you just go to an arbitrator, split the business up?"
Yeah.
And I go, "You go your way, and you go he goes his way." I go, "Because otherwise you're going to wind up in prison." I go, "You're not a guy that's going to be able to survive in prison."
Right. Yeah, because they're not going to get you talking about a murder again after you beat the case.
I mean, the best education I ever had was in 1986 and 1987 when I was in federal prison. Yeah. You know, I not only got a criminal because I was in there with Rosario Gambino, Michael Franchise, Sam Sarantino, the underboss of the mob, in there with a bunch of heavy hitters like the Southern type mafia guys.
Yeah.
I mean,
was it hard for you? Because I'm sure you made you're obviously making a ton of criminal connections while you're fighting your case when you're at Terminal Island.
When they approach you when you come home.
It must be, right?
It's very hard. Hey, I got a boat coming into Long Beach. You know, I got 400 tons of marijuana in a tanker. I'll give it to you. Just pay me, I'll front it to you, on the arm. And that's the way the Hells Angels always got their drugs. It made it very easy to get yourself set up. You got that Hells Angel patch on your back. Hey, I know the Hells Angels don't burn people.
Right.
So I'm going to give this guy, 40 pounds of cocaine.
Right.
That's how that guy, Tom Chaney, the guy that said I wanted killed, he came to me and he said, "They're giving me 200 pounds of cocaine. They're giving me on the front. Can I run it through town here?"
Yeah.
And my response to him was, who are you? I go, "You're nobody." I said, "I'm not trying to insult you. I go, if they're giving you 200 pounds of cocaine, I go, they're fucking feds, man.
Right.
Because you're nobody.
Yeah.
And,
They're going to lay 100 keys on you?
Yeah, come on, man.
Right.
You know? And
so you're like the mayor of Ventura. Like to come to you, you're like, you really are like the Don Corleone. Like who asked permission to do crime in the modern era?
yeah. It's another interesting
Were you
thing.
flattered?
Absolutely.
Your ego must have
loved
been
it, man.
out of control.
I loved it. I still love it. Beverly and I talk about it. Sometimes we're eating dinner. We go out and have a nice dinner, and the chef invites me into the kitchen. The chef would like you to come back into the kitchen. And I look at her and wink. Why wouldn't I go back in the kitchen and shake hands with the chef and tell him how good the meal was? And it's why would the guy come? This is in my prime. Why wouldn't he come to me with a note? The place has been bugged. Because I nurtured relationships with people, and I tried to make the community understand that I had their best interests at heart. Yeah. When the gang starts shooting at each other, we call a meeting at the clubhouse. You guys you're not gonna shoot at each other in Ventura County. You're not gonna jeopardize the community and the citizens. Right. Okay, George.
And there, you did use even if you were bluffing, you did use the violent reputation of the Hells Angels to make those guys stop.
Absolutely. And was I bluffing? I don't know. We rule that town with an iron fist.
Did you have guys within the club who you knew were solid, like weren't rats, wouldn't ever flip, and it was just kind of this unspoken, like if I need
something done, I know who to go to.
Okay.
I'll concede that to you.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's fascinating psychology.
Right.
Be these big groups where, there's subgroups and,
one of the,
a lot remains unspoken because, there's so many people that are weak and probably would go bad.
Two of the most trusted guys towards the end of my tenure in the club were associates of my son. They went to high school with my son, and they became really, really solid guys. They
did they become members?
Yes.
Wow.
And we were talking about how do you weed out informants? Like it got so bad that what we did was after the ATF raided us in the 70s, I took away everybody's. If you was a message on the board, you had a number, and number 5, then you put the message. So it was a message for number 5. Unless you were part of the inner circle, you didn't know whose number was who.
Wow.
So we used to I had suspicion this guy was an informant, and ultimately he became an informant, or he was an informant, even when I had suspicions. And the young security officer, he was my security officer, solid guy. And I'll tell you a funny story in a minute. But so I said, look, we're going to start this new process because everybody is suspect nowadays. We're going to put numbers in a fishbowl, and in every meeting we're going to pull the number out, and that individual will randomly get searched. So he can't come into the meeting, and he doesn't know if his number is going to get called.
Wow, so you searching for wires.
Yeah.
Wow. So how'd you do it? You pat him down? You have a wand?
Take him in the bathroom and strip him. Take their clothes off.
It's gangster shit. Yeah.
And
play prison guard for a sec.
Well,
let's see that starfish, baby. Yeah. Make a wink. Make a wink.
I hear you cough.
Yeah.
So, the guy, we figured it out, because this is the deal.
Did you ever catch anyone?
Well, let me tell you what happened. Yeah. So, we pull his number every week. It's the same number. Marty pulls the tag. Number 15. Next week, God damn, number 15 again. The third week, number 15 again. Because we knew he was no good, but we just couldn't prove it, man. So they pulled him out. He was scared. He thought we were going to kill him, And I asked him to I wanted to temporarily transfer to a charter where I had very close ties and very dangerous guys up there. And I said, I'd like you to go up there for just a few months and get away from the heat. It's a lot of heat here. And I think you're under surveillance. And that's when they pulled him out. He went in the witness protection program. Wow. He never testified against me, but he did do something, a real disservice for me. He told me there was a body buried under my house in Oakview, and they leveled the house, dug up the swimming pool. And when I got back from prison in 2015, Beverly and I have been by there. It's just flat, man. It's all gone.
The feds
bulldozed
the whole house.
Bulldozed everything.
They have the right to do that?
Well, yeah, and they got control of it through I don't know what all the circumstances were. I was in prison in Texas.
So you lost the house first.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
And they thought there was a body there. And the informant had said there was a body there.
Wow. So you guys,
these are rumors. Like one of the cops. There's cops that are sympathetic to the outlaw lifestyle or whatever, and he told me the story. He thought it was just hilarious. It's hilarious from his point of view because the cops look like a bunch of idiots. Yeah. They listened to this guy, dug everything up, and there was nothing there. Yeah. But of course, they keep it on the down low.
Did you ever have a cop? I know you weren't paying the cops, but in small towns. The cops, like you say, a lot of them are cool. Yeah, Did you ever have a cop come to you and just tip you off? Like, hey, you got heat.
I had a district attorney's husband. It was a woman district attorney's husband came to me and saw me walking down the street and said, I just wanted to tell you, the library, there's a camera in the library. They're recording everything, everybody that comes and goes. And the blue awning out front, there's a microphone in the blue awning. And I said, well, why are you telling me this stuff? And he said, because my wife thinks it's all bullshit.
Wow.
You got people that, look.
Reasonable people.
Yeah, I mean.
That is insane.
These I've never, I don't think I've said that publicly before. A lot of these things I kind of keep to myself. Beverly, my wife and I, we share them and we laugh because maybe it's the time now. Maybe people now will go, those motherfuckers. 10 years ago, they go, come on, George, man. You're a little bit overly nervous or you're lying. You're
a little paranoid, yeah.
So, but
no, now really... more people believe it than ever. And that's why people, I don't even think somebody would try a U.S. attorney unless they were very stupid, would even try to entrap you and put a case on you like the murder conspiracy in 86, because juries just don't believe the government. People do not believe the feds now. We see it. We're these people break their own laws. They don't police themselves. They lie constantly. And they think we're hillbilly. It's part of the reason that I'm serious. It's part of the reason that you saw the Lufthansa, the last living guy from the Lufthansa heist. I can't remember his name. Bad guy, bad mafia guy. Should be in prison. Has bodies buried under his house. Right.
Are you talking about Burke, Jimmy Burke, or?
No. I'm not talking about I can't remember his name. It's something real Italian, real Guinea. But
you're going to get in trouble for that.
I say it lovingly. I love the Italian Americans who listen to my podcast.
The hardest working. Never felt scene from The Godfather.
Yeah, exactly. So he goes before the jury, this old decrepit man, they had a wiretaps of him talking about these bodies and the Lufthansa heist. And this was modern era. This is 4 years ago.
Okay.
And
they just can't give it up, huh?
Well, no. This is them coming back after the Lufthansa heist happened in the 70s.
Yeah, right.
And so you're right. He was the last guy arrested. And the jury, they said, not guilty. We think we're going to let this guy go.
Really?
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. The changing of the times is the society trusts the government less and less and less and less.
Well, I'm an expert witness now. I'm recognized by the courts as an expert witness for the defense.
Yeah.
And, the prosecutors have been bringing gang cops up for 30 years.
Yeah.
And they've had a free reign. They get up there and they talk about how bad we are, and the Hells Angels did this, and the Hells Angels did this. Now they bring me in there, and I tell it from my side, and I tell you, some of them are good sports. They think it's very interesting, but some of them are really poor losers. I got in a big argument with a cop. He said I was a perjurer, and will arrest me.
So they bring you up as an expert witness in.
I just got a call from Oregon
in federal cases,
state and federal.
And you're
well, I don't think I've done any federal stuff yet. I've worked on federal cases, analyzing police reports, but I don't think I haven't testified in not state cases, Oregon and California.
Okay, so tell us about some of these cases. What are you? And who you're an expert because you've been persecuted by
because
the FBI?
I lived the life. No, because I never even mentioned that. I'm an expert because I was a Hells Angel leader for 40 years, and they tried to discredit me, and the judge told the prosecutor, this is just probably 3 or 4 months ago, come on. And they go, who knows better than him? And let the jury decide if they believe him or not.
What's an example of a case you did recently?
I did. A guy had a filthy few patch. You know what that? No. Filthy few is supposed to mean you killed someone at the behest of the Hells Angels. It is morphed into an urban legend now, and the problem is they said, well, he has a filthy few patch. Well, for me as an expert, doesn't mean anything. A lot of guys have filthy few patches now. It's just a patch that they wear. I don't know what they're trying to designate. Each person has their own personal message. Right. But I said, everybody in the club, probably 90% of the guys wear filthy few patches. I go, where are the bodies? Right. Where are all these murdered people that these guys have got this filthy few patch? And I think it was a real good argument. I think the jury believed me. The lawyer said they had a first-degree murder case. We didn't win the case, but
guy got found guilty.
Found guilty, but he's got found guilty of a lesser charge because what they were saying, I discredited what they were saying. And they were saying it was premeditated. And my position was, and what I argued to the jury was, it was spontaneous. It was an emotional thing. Yeah. And so he's going to be eligible for parole probably 18 years from now. Wow. But that's better than having a life with no parole.
Of course.
And he's a young guy. He's probably in his late 30s, maybe. I don't know.
Were they trying to prove that he was doing?
He was hired by another bike club to go kill a gang member, and I just said that structurally would never happen. I go, if you don't handle your own shit, you have no status in the outlaw bike world. I go, they would not hire another club member from another club to take care of business in their town. Right. Just, it's not going to happen. And the jury believed me.
Wow. Where was that
San Bernardino, Riverside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But look.
So what was it? I'm interested. I love to hear these cases. Was it a feud or how did somebody get killed?
Three of the guys in the other club, which I'm not going to mention any club names, I was very disappointed in them. They turned evidence against this guy. He was a guest in another town. They all went in the bathroom to snort coke, and 5 people went in there and 4 people walked out, and the guy wouldn't, he said, I didn't do it, but they found him guilty of it. I mean, it was a tough case, man. It was an uphill battle. And what's really interesting is the lawyer, like, he was brilliant. I mean, to chip away at that thing. Yeah. I mean, you've got 2 guys saying he's the shooter. Yeah. And we hired him to come there and take care of business for us. And then I get up there and testify, no, that's not what happened. And that wouldn't happen in the culture. And, so the jury, the judge, he seemed kind of in awe. He was listening to everything we said, and he seemed like a reasonable man. And the lawyer said, you reach these guys, and it was, these guys at one time were enemy of the Hells Angels. Wow. So it was an interesting dynamic.
Right. Okay, so these were bikers, though. These were outlaw bikers.
Southern California patched outlaw bikers.
San Bernardino, I'm going to guess something Chicano, Bago, or Mongol, you know?
You just never give up, do you?
Nah, just deductive reasoning, you know?
Yeah, you're a good investigative reporter.
Thanks. Wow, that's so fascinating.
And it was cool to go in there.
And they pay you. The defense obviously pays you to show up for your time.
Oh, yeah. I went to Oregon, another case up there. 2 club members fighting it out. One guy kills the other club member.
Where? What part of
Oregon?
I'm from Portland.
I don't remember. Down. Say the town.
Salem.
No, down. Up. No, wait. It's still down. Salem's
Eugene,
down.
Cresswell. There's tiny little.
Eugene?
Was it a small town?
Yeah. I think it was
Corvallis.
No,
it must have been a small town, right?
Yeah,
that's where you're going to find most of these bikers, right?
It was really cool. Like Beverly and I go in there, take my dog in there
into the courtroom.
Yeah, in the courtroom.
Oh, so this must have been
Oregon. You know,
yeah,
dog friendly.
So they got members up there too.
Yeah, well, this is a different club. This
okay, but they have 1%ers in Oregon.
Yeah, and they shot it. It was an interesting case. I mean, they didn't get what they wanted, but the guy's going to come home in 6 years or 7 years. You know? The guy didn't die. The other guy lived.
I see. That seems to be, from the early fights on the beach, the fist fights, to the stabbings, the bombings, now like the shootings. It seems like it's mostly just but when biker violence happens, it's mostly just testosterone and fueled by drugs and alcohol and stupidity.
Misunderstandings.
Right. And
that sounds ridiculous, but it's true.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do bikers still check in? Like if bikers are going to other towns?
Well, they're supposed to. Some people demand it. Sonny Barger and I got in a big argument one time because the Banditos were coming to see me, and they didn't check in Arizona. He was really mad, but it wasn't about the Banditos. He was mad. He just wanted to be mad at me.
Right.
He liked to get mad at me and reprimand me if he could, because I kind of laughed off anything when he tried to punish me.
Right.
My last conversation with him was the book Angels of Death came out. He called me and said, I saw the book. He goes, you look pretty bad in it. And I go, me? I go, Jesus Christ, you ought to read your chapter. And he got really mad at me. And he goes, you know what, man? In the book, they call me the Al Capone of Ventura. And there's a picture of me with my arms crossed. And it says, Hells Angels' longest serving president. And he got mad because I had upped him one, I guess.
Right.
And he said, you need to step down as president, and nobody wants you to be that president anymore. And I said, what's it got to do with you? And he goes, well, I'm just telling you what I want. And I said, well, I'm going to tell you something, Ralph. That's what I used to call him. I go, what you want doesn't really matter to me anymore. And he hung up on me. So I called him back and I go, hey, Ralph, I think we got I started to say disconnected, and I said disconnected, and then he goes, no, he was going to say he hung up on me, and I hung up on him first.
It's classic.
That was my last conversation.
And that was the last conversation you had with him, and he died in prison.
He died on the street. He died probably 5 years after that. I remained in the club like 5 years. Him and I button heads.
Right.
You know the story, Josh Harbor, Ventura Hells Angel?
No.
Went to Arizona, Cave Creek. Sonny's charter, got murdered.
Wow.
From there, Sonny's protege, a guy named Hoover, was murdered in Cave Creek. And, the police thought it was tit for tat, and, launched a bunch of investigations and controversy in the club. Yeah. And, when I ultimately decided to leave, it took me a couple of years.
Yeah.
And people always ask me, well, why did it take so long? And I didn't know if my ego could take it.
Yeah.
Not being
the man.
Yeah. I just didn't know if I could take it. And I finally built up the nerve, took my patch off. I folded it up, put it on the table. explained why I was leaving. I said, we have become the people we rebelled against. And I go, I'm gone, man. I want to live my life out as a real outlaw. I don't want all these rules and regulations. And I go, you guys are fighting every major bike club. And I go, ultimately, if you read your history, you guys are going to turn inward. You're going to start killing each other. And if you read my book,
It's metaphor for the United States.
it is. And if you read my book, at the end of the epilogue in the end, I think it says it all. Explains why I didn't go back ultimately. How that book happened was I got a phone call about 3.5 years ago, and it was a Hells Angel who wasn't supposed to call me. And he said, if you're going to mend the fence with Ralph, he goes, you need to do it now because he's not going to be around much longer. He died the next day. But I got up that night and started thinking about my span of since 1966, and I started writing,
Wow.
and it took me 3 years. And like I said, at the end, I wrote it, finished it, woke up in the middle of the night, and I was thinking to myself, that's a cop-out ending, and I ended it pretty profound ending, I think. Perhaps other people read it and not think that, but it's a pretty profound ending.
Well, I mean, it's such a fascinating life. It's really out of a movie, Crossing the Rubicon by the one and only George Christie. I cannot wait to read it, man. It's a life that is so classically California, so classically America. You're like a moment in time,
Well, time's running out, maybe.
For sure. For sure. It's getting late, as someone said.
Yeah, and it's feeling pretty good. Riding those rigid frames is catching up to us a little bit, all that hard riding and whatnot. Got a couple of hip replacements.
Yeah.
But,
Isn't it interesting that you guys, you always become what you hate? Like you joined the club, you became an outlaw to not follow rules. But then when you're a big enough group and time goes on, there's rules.
Incredible.
Yeah. And so it's funny how these organisms, form.
I said, hey, I just signed up for this, guys. This is not what I signed up for. I wanted to have fun, And, I've considered starting up the Question Marks again. That's the first club I was around. But, Old Man John came to me in early 80s when he decided he was going to quit. And he had turned the club over to me in Los Angeles. I was a leader down in Los Angeles and then moved everything to Ventura. And he goes, I'm hanging it up, George. And I was brokenhearted, man. I go, no, you can't, And he goes, it's a young man's game, George.
For sure.
And he goes, I'm an old man. So
have they made a case, like what's going on with the Ventura Club now?
I don't see them very often. I know they're there.
Have they been raided? Have the feds made any cases?
I think they've been raided. There's one of the guys got caught with a gun, and he was a felon, ammunition. Nothing like what I would consider like.
Nothing like what happened to you.
No, not yet. But, somebody's got to step up and start making a ruckus, and I'm sure he'll get someone's attention.
Right.
And someone will take, they'll take that as a challenge. And that's what happened with me. I think a lot of guys, in law enforcement. But, it's funny now. I run into cops, ex-cops, and they laugh about it. I think that some of the older cops, I write in there about was a murder investigation, and it took me like 30 years to realize this. He's a homicide cop, and he it wasn't me he was after. It was just me. It was what I'd become and what I represented in
freedom. People hate freedom.
Yeah, they do. And,
I don't want to sound over dramatic, but
a
lot of people really want to be slaves, unfortunately.
Well, I think they do it on a subconscious level. I don't think they wake up and go, I think what happens is oh man, I got to make a decision. What decision should I make? Is it going to be right or is it going to be wrong? Well, you know what? Make a goddamn decision and move forward, man. Yeah. And if you fail, dust yourself off and make another decision.
So you're in the club 40 years as a biker, 30 practically as the president of the LA Ventura chapter of the Hells Angels, hung out with movie stars, rock and roll legends, survived a war with the Mongols. Several wars with the Mongols.
Bandidos, outlaws.
You beat 2 federal cases, a murder conspiracy, an arson conspiracy, probably tied up with murder. Did they
also racketeering case, 59 counts.
You beat a state case.
Yeah.
When was that?
2002. They dropped all the charges. I pled to a tax charge.
Oh my God! So were you
59 counts?
Wow. Were they? I mean, we've all cheated on our couple of deductions on our taxes. What the fuck was that over? That was just another attempt.
Yeah, they said I owed $300,000 in state franchise back taxes, and so it's funny. I go into the courtroom and I pled guilty on a conspiracy, and they dropped like 50.
What were all the other 50 counts?
Narcotics, stealing from the Vicodin from the base, and all that stuff. This is the Vicodin case.
So they were trying to tie the Vicodin with the money, with the taxes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I researched along with my lawyer. If I pled guilty, I immediately would be responsible for the back taxes of $290,000. But if I pled nolo contendere, I had an audit. I would get an audit. So I pled guilty.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't plead guilty. I pled nolo contendere. And as soon as they made the plea and whatnot, the district attorney stood up and said, I'd like Mr. Christie arrested if he doesn't pay the bill by 5 o'clock tonight. I'm just saying that. I can't remember exactly what he said. And Judge Clark, who I never thought liked me, he goes, I think Mr. Christie's up to something here. And he goes, do you have something you want to say, Mr. Christie? And I said, well, Judge, I'd like an audit. And he goes, I'm going to grant you your audit. And they didn't know. And he goes, next time you accept a plea from somebody, he goes, you better research it. And these guys, they tried to give me a 3-year gag on talking to the media. That was one of the conditions of my probation was Mr. Christie cannot talk to the media for 3 years. And Judge Clark, it's a funny story I'm leading up to. Judge Clark says, are Mr. Christie's words so powerful? You must silence him. And I always thought Judge Clark didn't like me because I'd been in traffic court and all that shit. And so when I did the Outlaw Chronicles, I talked about Judge Clark, and my daughter knows him well because she stood before him so many times, and they met like by accident in one of the shopping malls, and my daughter said, "Oh, Judge Clark, it's so nice to see you." And he goes, "Oh, Mariah, you look like you're doing great." And he goes, "Oh, and tell your dad thanks for the shout out on Outlaw Chronicles." I mean,
yeah,
it's so. There's a lot of people out there. You think they're taking it very seriously, and Clark over the years put out some stuff, but I think they understand. They understand the dynamics of things, and
so you basically beat that. You just had to catch up on your taxes.
Yeah, my audit.
Did you do any time?
I'd been in no bail for a year.
Okay, so you've been in jail.
Yeah, for a year, and they let me out. Time served, but this is it. These things, they overcharge you, and they overcharge you, and they overcharge you, and it becomes cumbersome for them,
right?
And it's like they say I owe $290,000 in back taxes. I get the audit, I owe them $1,100.
So there has to be some kind of loss. You have to fight back, right? You can't.
I mean, when I was sentenced in 2013. Judge Wu turned out to be really interesting guy, and very fair. He tells a U.S. attorney, he goes, look, I know you want this to be your career case. He goes, it's not. Yeah. And he goes, you're going to have to come to terms with that. And I'm sitting over there on the defense table all smug. And then he turns and he points at me and he goes, and you, Mr. Christie, God only knows what you've gotten away with. He goes, you ought to be satisfied with what I'm going to sentence you to. He gave me a year, But my daughter got credit for 2 years house arrest, which they don't give you in the feds. Right. And she said, come on, Your Honor, he sat in his house for 2 years waiting for this to happen. One of the big questions was, during the voir dire, the judge was asking we had a big jury pool, 76 people. Do you watch Sons of Anarchy? If you do you believe the president knows everything all the members are doing? Anybody that said yes, we bumped him.
Yeah,
good. We bumped him. Right. We bumped him.
Because that was one of the biggest shows at the time.
It was.
People are like, well, this is really how it happens.
Exactly. And they said that. The jurors go, well, isn't that how it happens? And that's why we made the deal.
Yeah.
My daughter told me, she goes, look, Dad, you want to face a life sentence in today's environment with Sons of Anarchy, one of the #1 shows on TV? I don't think you should do it.
Yeah.
So we...
You got away with a lot. Judge Wu was
right.
That's what
Judge Wu said, and I think Judge Wu may have been right.
Crossing the Rubicon. My friend George Christie, it's so good to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see you here in Austin. I mean,
I'm tickled that you thought of me and your book promotion, and I'll come see you in Ventura, man.
I hope you do.
Because we're coming back to Cali.
Come to the house and come to my little studio. We'll do...
Would love to.
Yeah.
Say less.
I'm going to put you on the hot seat, man.
Hey, I'm an open book,
Okay.
Crossing the Rubicon. Go check it out. Get it on Amazon or your website.
Book Baby Book Club.
Yeah.
My website. If you get it on my website, you can get it signed and you can get a coin. I have a challenge
and the
coin.
coins are fire, phenomenal. You know who George Christie is. Go see it. Check out his content. Check out his page. Check out his Patreon. All that. The legend. Really, really had a great time.
I appreciate
Thanks,
it,
man. See you later,
good
guys.
Seeing you.
Yeah, you too.
All right, man.